Happy Father's Day, everyone, and welcome to my front drive. I would like to share with you my review and experience of the Lift Blowfish and how it can possibly fit the decks of other brands of eFoils. So I thought it'd be really appropriate to post this on Father's Day because not only am I a father, but other people are also fathers, and that's one of the best parts of the Lift Blowfish is being able to use it as a fatherly figure. Whether you yourself are a father as well, taking your child out, or if you're taking your dog out, or if you're being a fatherly figure as a teacher, and you're sharing the stoke of flying and surfing on an eFoil. You're being a father of eFoiling or foiling itself. Hydrofoil dad, but much cooler. I have tested it with the Waydoo, as you can see here, as well as the Getfoil board, and I've also fitted it to a Fliteboard, an older one, but two different sizes at a nearby shop here. So based on my experience with those three different brands and different sizes and shapes of decks, I believe that the Lift Blowfish, especially the larger size, this is the 5'4" size, can possibly fit just about any brand board in some way. Again, it's not going to be a perfect fit, but I believe it can be made to work with just about any brand. Lift themselves have even shown it fitting to a wing foil board, not even an eFoil. So there's enough features on here, which I'll show you later, loops and ties that you can kind of maneuver and jimmy rig to secure this raft enough that it will be usable with, again, just about any brand, at least one or more of their shapes and sizes of decks. Before we go too far, how about an unboxing, or rather an unbagging? So this is the bag that will be inside the box, and these are the items that will be inside the bag. You have your pump, and you have an extra little bag here, mesh bag, and a mesh bag for the nose of the board or blowfish that can be connected to the various loops that are in the nose area. So all in all, a great package and a repair kit too. So let's show you how to install it on the Waydoo. Lift has a really great installation video, but the three main tips that I would like to share with you is to inflate the raft only a little bit so that it has some shape, but it's still flexible so that you can maneuver a board into the Lift Blowfish. You can either install it before you put the mast on the board or after you put the mast on the board. You want to make sure that the straps are out of the way. And then a third thing, which the Lift videos don't really talk about, is the plug or the lid for the inflation hole. I recommend that you close that before installing the board, because if it's flopping around, you could potentially pull on that string and break the string. And then the cap, could press into the blowfish itself if you don't realize that it's underneath the board, and you could push that hard plastic into the blowfish and maybe damage the blowfish. So that would be my third recommendation, is to close the cap, and then you can reopen it and inflate it the rest of the way to the recommended PSI. So you're going to first get the nose as far into the front of the blowfish as possible. Depending on the shape of the nose, you might not be able to get it in there all the way, but you're going to try and push it in as much as it can go. And then after that, you're just going to kind of move and pull on the handles and the blowfish to allow the rails to sit in as deeply as it can. Again, it's going to be flexible, so it allows more room for the ribs to come up around or hug the rail of the board. It may not go all the way on top of the board, as is designed for the sake of the lift board. It might be more on the side, but we're gonna make it work. I've made it work on 3 different brands, but I've only actually taken it on the water with 2. So you can take the handle, pull up while pushing down on the board. And then you'll see different rings and landmarks that you can compare each side and get it as centered as possible. So you may need a lift on this side and then come back over here and push on this side. So you're just going to do your best to get it in there. So there's a little bit of a loop here from this strap, and that is about as equally high above the rail as it is on this side. And then we can go back to inflating it the rest of the way after we have tied it down. So you're going to want to use these straps to anchor down the board first. And then if you don't have handles, or they're not in the position where these straps are going to work well to anchor in the handles, then you're going to have to maybe move these straps to a different loop. There's all these loops up here. Or you may even have to make your own strap or combine these straps to secure the back end. Because if it's not secured back here from at least this anchor point here, then this whole back end of the blowfish is going to flop down. So you want to have some kind of anchor to at least this rear loop through the handle or across the entire board. So now let's check out the fit of the blowfish on all of the boards that I have tested it with. So first, the Waydoo. And just so you can kind of see, there's a little bit of gap here and a little bit of gap here, but otherwise you can get the nose to fit all the way to the front with the Waydoo Flyer 1. Again, this is the Lift 5.4 Blowfish. So there's the fit on the bottom. Inside the inflation hole, there is a spring-loaded mechanism which you can push down and then lock down, which will cause the air to constantly flow out. But I personally have found that keeping it unlocked and the spring loose is just fine, because it doesn't take long to just simply push it with your finger. So once again, you want to make sure the nose is as far forward as possible, and then you can set the back end down. And make sure the straps are pulled out first. Behold, ladies and gentlemen, the fit of possibly the most unique and strange shaped deck in all of eFoil industry history. This is the Cyberdeck 5/8 shape by the once great eFoil Foil Incorporated. May they rest in peace. This business is no longer in business. And the Cyberdeck shape has also, coincidentally, ironically, been described as some as a casket shape. So here we have the Cyberdeck casket shape inside the Lift Blowfish. The nose goes all the way to the front because it is very narrow. Updated deck before they went out of business. Forged shape, the forged deck shape has a wider nose. May have trouble getting it all the way in, but I think it'll fit as well, because overall the dimensions are roughly the same. It has these very wide hips. You can see it's not quite perfect in there. I would suggest maybe a lower PSI to get it to kind of fall in there into place better. But again, this is going to work. Like the Waydoo, there is some room and play up here. And then it is really important, this one does not have handles. So you're going to have to combine the straps. I didn't combine them for the sake of time, but this is just to show you. You'll have to combine the straps in the back or make your own strap. So the Lift Blowfish does come with this extra strap here that is wound around everything inside to keep it tight. So you could potentially use that, or just go to the hardware store and make your own strap. But you got to secure it some way in the back so that the ribs don't simply flop and fall down, especially when they are not on top of the deck as designed for the lift decks themselves. So here you go. So up here in the nose goes all the way to the front, and because of it being so narrow and pointy from the Cyberdeck design, there's no problem with the nose going to the front, but there's going to be lots of space here and here for water to potentially pool inside if it sloshes over, but it'll eventually flow its way out. And then the cover here fits pretty nicely to the board. Some water will definitely get between the board and the cover, even with the lift boards, I imagine, but as soon as you gain momentum and you get flying, it's all going to rush out anyway, which is nice due to the open back design. The eFoil 4/8 Cyberdeck casket shape. I have not used this one on the water. I'll have to do that on a later date and maybe test it with a friend who was not able to get up on this shape of board in this size. And me in the old days, I would have waited and got that kind of footage, but I'm going to try to not do that anymore, because that's one of the reasons why I get into trouble with too many projects, too much editing, too little time, and then I get really behind and bury myself in my projects of videos to post, which is the big reason why I'm often behind. So I'm going to try to stop doing that and be better at managing my time between being a busy family dad, eFoiling, work. Oftentimes I take my eFoil on the way to work, and God. Today is Sunday, Father's Day, so I'll be going to church after this. I gotta get it edited and posted for Father's Day. So again, we got kind of the same fit for the nose and the front, and I want to point out the handles. So this side, I'm pointing out a method that you could loop it back and tie it to the same loop. This side, you can tie it to the front, because as you can see, the handles are really far forward and they're not between these two loops. But again, you have a lot of loops that you can jimmy rig this in a really easy, quick fashion. You may have to go to the hardware store, buy some extra straps, but you can make it work. And this is just loosely showing how you can tie it in the back as well. You can make it tighter so that it hugs the side of the board better and has a tighter fit, better fit. Let's check out the bottom. All right, the bottom. So you will have to cut and modify the bottom material of the Lift Blowfish if you are using any of the shorter boards out there on the market with the 5/4 size. So again, this is the larger Lift Blowfish. I cannot speak for the fit of the smaller one with smaller boards. That's going to be completely up to you to guess. Or you can try to find a dealer near you and see if they'll let you fit it, or a friend who has one. Fliteboard 2 series, and this is the sport model. So you can see that it is a little bit small inside there, but it fits really well. There's very minimal gaps here in the nose area. The nose is filling the nose of the raft very nicely. But because it's the smaller board, the handle is not in between the two default strap areas in order to strap that handle in. But there is another point here, so you can move this strap up to that loop and secure it. So it's definitely possible to use the sport inside the larger Blowfish. However, let's check the underside. However, you will have to modify the bottom because it's not going to allow for the mast to insert the way it is. You'll have to cut it a little bit more in order for the mast to be able to go in and not bunch up the bottom material of the Blowfish raft. Now I have it pumped up to the recommended 7 PSI. You can see that with the smaller board, there's going to be some play on the sides. So there's going to be some looseness there. So if you're looking to potentially have only one raft to fit both sizes, this is just Just so you guys can see, I'm not going to be taking this out on the water. This is from a rental shop here called Wake Bros that you can rent Fliteboard gear at Page, Arizona for Lake Powell. So there you go. Check out the larger board. For the larger Fliteboard, it is a tighter fit. The nose doesn't quite go all the way to the end because the nose is wider. Nevertheless, I think it will work. So you can see here just how much space there is, even after I tried to push the nose as far forward as I could. And then you can observe the rest of the fit throughout the video. The Lift Blowfish is a great product, an amazing idea that the entire industry and all of its brands should copy and emulate, just as Lift got the idea from Waydoo 3 years ago with their flyer pod. However, the Lift Blowfish has better features, especially with the grab handles. I and my children love these grab handles. It's so much fun and it adds so much more security and help for the father, the teacher, the learner, the child, whoever is on it. But some feedback that I would suggest for Lift and all other brands making this helpful inflatable accessory is to add more of those handles. It is honestly the reason why I bought this, is the grab handles. You could, if you're creative, add grab handles to the Waydoo flyer pod, but I don't really have the time or creativity for that. But on the larger one, I would suggest adding 2 pairs of handles on each side, and then the smaller one, maybe 1 additional pair on each side, because these handles up front are great for getting going and getting on plane when I want my child to be sitting more up front. But once I got going, I was kind of hoping that she could scoot back more, which put the handles a little bit more out of her reach, especially as a smaller 5-year-old. And so more handles is my biggest suggestion to the entire industry. But otherwise, you know, this has a lot of great features, a lot of loops. So your creativity, your imagination is the limit. There is a mesh pocket that can be installed in the front area, so you can take your cell phone, supplies. You could even take this thing on maybe a picnic trip or camping. I mean, really, truly, your imagination and your creativity is the limit with the Blowfish. Lift has also done a better job at marketing the Blowfish, but they could still do an even better job than what they're doing already with simply marketing it to learning and dog owners. So this is really great for learning, not only because it adds more volume and buoyancy, but it gives this nice rubber baby buggy bumpers for impacts to and from the raft, and just to feel like you're in a watercraft versus just simply on a deck. So it just adds a lot more security. Not only that, but water is less likely to slosh over the front, it's less likely to submerge, which is less likely to cut off Bluetooth connection to the remote, and that also makes it easier to learn. The one thing, however, that Lift and the entire industry is missing out on for marketing is showing how inflatables like this can help those with physical challenges. There are many people who have physical challenges that would love to learn to surf and fly. People like my older brother, who is a war veteran with back, hip problems. I've also helped some friends learn how to ride who had some knee problems. And so I would love to see this shown, helping people like that learn to enjoy the stoke of flying and surfing in beautiful places such as Lake Powell. Allow me to set some expectations regarding the use of the Lift Blowfish. It weighs about 10 pounds, which is going to change the way you ride a little bit. Kind of like how training wheels will change how people ride a bike. And for some people, a small demographic, training wheels might not help as much as other people, but it's going to help most people. And that extra weight is going to add some swing weight, especially if you're using it on a board that is not Lift, because It's designed to sit on top of the rails of the lift board. And if it's not fitting on top of the rails of a different kind of board and it's adding more width, then you have more swing weight, and it's going to change how it handles in the air and on the water especially. I found that if you're having trouble steering it on the water, this is going to be even more true for smaller weight riders or younger riders. But to steer it on the water, you give it a burst of acceleration turn, burst of acceleration turn, burst of acceleration turn. I found that that's pretty helpful, and I'll demonstrate that in the part 2 video. So just keep that in mind with the extra 10 pounds around the front and the sides of the board. So it's going to be heavier in the front. But with that said, when you do a nosedive, because of the blunt front of the board, it's going to be really nice on nosedives. It's going to be very forgiving. So I lost the footage of me demonstrating it, but I do demonstrate it at least once with my daughter. So check it out, part 2. The bag also doubles as a backpack. She's gone from blowfish to suckfish. Subscribe, like, and live life to the fullest.